Hello and welcome to Move the Line, presented by 4for4 Bets and Sharp Stack. You got to check out the new Sharp Stack 2.0 if you've not already done so. Ryan Noonan joined here as always by my friends Connor Allen, Scott Smith for a little mock draft, mock betting discussions. Connor, what's going on with you?
Yeah, not a whole lot. I'm midweek during my stint of becoming a college basketball expert. I am the number one bracketologist in the entire country right now. No, I just, people love March Madness content. It's funny because I don't know enough to make it not dumbed down enough. So I dumb it down and everyone loves it. It's great. It's awesome. So yeah, check out my threads if you're interested in that. If not, we got plenty of content here and we're gonna, dive into the NFL draft. It'll be great.
People love the Ken Palm thread.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
As
soon as I saw it, I was like, he's been stewing on that all day. He could not wait to get that one out as soon as we get everything ready to go. Probably working on some drafts for that too. I know that is an engagement, probably top tier engagement tweet of the year, but good info. Right? Like I'm joking and but it's really, you're not alone in terms of like casuals that come in aggressively at this time of year. So good info.
And it's not like I generally hate trend based stuff, but it's kind of like what teams are good at offense and defense so that they're not going to get exposed either way. And those teams normally win. That's basically what it's saying. It's just like a, complicated way to say that basically. So
Scott, I'm a chalk donkey too. I love a good chalky donk parlay. You get like minus 138 or so right now. If you want to get the top 4 seeds to the Sweet 16, just the Sweet 16. Like, happy to lay that. If someone wants to bet. Scott, what's going on with you, buddy?
Nothing much, man. Parsing through all of this free agency stuff, seeing where some changes and all. And look, hey, the MMA Discord, our MMA product at 4for4 coming off 20-unit profit for last UFC event. So
absolutely love to see it. Yeah, Scott's been working on some stuff in the back end, some modeling things that are having some just real exciting success. So definitely check that out. 4for4 subs and get all of his pre-flop UFC stuff in our Discord before any of those events, and obviously at Scott Smith FF on Twitter. We're going to kind of run through what Scott's talking about. We're going to actually, these two are going to take turns. Scott on the odds, Connor on the evens. We're going to run through a mock draft today. I'm going to kind of tee it up a little bit, kind of discuss some of the highest current team needs, some of the things that teams have done in free agency, see how that's shaped some stuff, and go from there. So Scott, won't waste any more time. You're on the clock. Don't need to kind of, Raiders were really busy in free agency. They still have a crap ton of needs. I don't think it matters in terms of what they're doing at the 101 here. So pick is yours here with the Raiders. Scott, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to throw a curveball and go Jeremiyah Love coming off the vibe. No, I mean, look, it's Fernando. It's Fernando Mendoza. Like, we don't need to spend a whole lot of time. He's the only real viable quarterback to go in this range, and they need it. So chalk it up.
Yeah, chalk it up. You can see here over the cap, been very busy. The Raiders have. You still have some pending guys that they could bring back, and then obviously some of the moves that they've made too, giving Tyler Linderbaum the bag, solidifying the linebacker position. But at the 101, pretty clean and easy. Fernando Mendoza there. Connor, we were talking earlier before we started, seems to be a little bit of one of these consensuses that makes me a little weary at this time of the year, where we're a little bit out. Really haven't seen anything team-wise that would make me think there's consensus per se, but we're just kind of getting a solid drumbeat with what the Jets are going to do here at 2. They've also been, pretty busy. It's, again, loaded with team needs. If you're to, drill down what do the Jets need, they need a lot. They did sign Demario Davis back again, his third stint with the Jets. They had given Jamien Sherwood a big contract at linebacker a couple of years ago. Added Nashawn Wright, brought Geno back in, Minka. Just a lot of moving parts here. Could still use some edge help, even though they brought in Joseph Asai. It's just not a great roster. What do you think the Jets do here too?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Arvell Reese. Seems to be more of like a consensus brewing, for a variety of reasons. But right now we're seeing minus 230 at DraftKings. In VR's mock sheet, 75% right now, Arvell Reese among sharp mock drafters going number 2. I don't think that it's quite that level percentage-wise overall, but I do think that he's starting to become, more and more like there. So, I think that Reese last time we were doing the show, he was like minus 130, minus 150, something like that. We kind of talked about how maybe that's a good look and it's only going one way. Now up to minus 230. So I'm going to go with Reese here. It seems like the move for the Jets. I think that they could consider Bailey. I think at one point they were considering a guy maybe like Sonny Styles or Caleb Downs, so kind of like an outside shot, kind of maybe creeping up there if something happened great during the pre-draft process. I think it's probably very likely between Reese and Bailey at this point.
I agree. I mean, I think off-ball linebacker at 2, based off of it kind of being forced, they just against re-upped with Sherwood last year. Seems like you would want one of these, potential edge. And again, Reese playing a little bit both has been pretty clear on his desire to play off-ball at the next level. Scott, Arizona on the clock here at 3. Has been active. I mean, we touched on possibilities as being a Jeremiyah Love team, and then kind of made some moves in free agency. At running back with Tyler Algier, they brought back James Conner. Doesn't seem like a great fit there either. What do you think Arizona does here at 3?
Yeah, I think some of the moves they made kind of, I don't want to say disqualify them from taking Jeremiyah Love, but that's a full backfield. I mean, they could probably just as easily cut one of those guys if they wanted to make a move for Love, but I kind of put him out. Earlier in the process, we kind of looked at tackle as being a problem. Not that it's a huge signing, but Elijah Wilkinson just signed over there. So it kind of signals that maybe they're a little bit comfortable in filling that need. And then you start to look at defense, and Bailey's the other person that is kind of in consideration here, but I'm actually going to go a different route, and I'm going to move Sonny Styles into this position. You start to look at the linebackers that they have. Cody Simon and Mac Wilson from, with New England for a little bit while. That's their 2 middle linebackers. So I think with Styles and the bump that he's had up throughout the pre-draft process, I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball and have him as a fit here to Arizona.
This was a single linebacker team under Jonathan Gannon, and obviously a new coaching staff, so that'll change. But yeah, I could see Sonny Styles. And again, there's been some talk. We haven't really seen it, but there's been some whispers around, again, another Jonathan Gannon guy, possibly not coming back, and Josh Sweat. So if we get some Sweat movement, I think this would be an edge rusher, but I also don't hate the Sonny Styles pick here at all. Obviously, insane testing and insane tape as well. Connor, back to you at 4 for the Titans. Titans have been fairly active as well. Obviously have a ton of needs. It's a pretty bad roster. What do you think Tennessee does here at 4?
It's funny because anytime pretty much in the last couple of years, a team has been like heavily favored to pick a running back, they've actually picked that guy. It basically almost always happens. Like I think there was the Giants with Saquon, the Steelers with Najee, even though they picked in like the 20s, the Cowboys with Zeke. Like I think the Falcons with Bijan too at one point. Like basically anytime that happens, it almost always seems to actually happen. And right now we have the team like the Titans talked about getting a playmaker. I think they're probably at this point going to take Jeremiyah Love. Kind of the thinking around it seems to be like teams need to move above number 4 to get Jeremiyah Love, which, again, implies that the Titans are very likely going to pick Jeremiyah Love. And then also, I guess last year, another example was, Genty with the Raiders. Like, I tried to talk myself out of it a million different ways, thinking that they needed to align and that there was, something else going on. It was just Genty probably the whole time. So, I think that, like, I don't want to talk myself out of it. I don't want to get out into this again where, well, they probably need this or they probably need something else. Sure, of course they do, but they're an NFL team. They need some more exciting players. They need some more playmakers. So I think Love is going to be the pick there.
There's been enough of a drumbeat that the Giants are interested. That now it could be complete posturing, but the Giants knowing that Tennessee's probably interested too, right? Like, so there's definitely some early posturing there. Back to you for the Giants here, Scott. Pick 5, Giants, a little bit active. Isaiah Likely comes in. Darnell Mooney comes in. They added Tremont Edmonds at linebacker after, letting Bobby Okereke go. Definitely a team that needs to fill some holes, some, questions. Greg Newsom comes in at corner. Corner and linebacker, some positions that have been mocked there previously, I think still kind of needs, even though they've been addressed here in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, again, I'm going to go in a little bit different direction, and I'm going to go with the tackle, Francis Magoa from Miami. I'm not necessarily sold on Manure as the long-term answer there. Even with them drafting here, they still have needs there at the interior offensive line. They can maybe play Mugoa, even though it's a little bit early there at the guard position. If they want to run it back with Manure for another season, but I think some of the I liked Sonny Styles there was the player that I liked, but with the Tremaine Edmonds signing, I kind of think that signals a little bit of a different direction. Wide receivers, maybe another position, but they just signed Darnell Mooney. Isaiah Likely was the other big signing that they had there offensively, and I think it's about keeping their quarterback upright and healthy at this point in time, and so we're going to go and build in the trenches.
All right, Connor, back to you. Pick 6, Browns, 1st to 2 on the clock. Obviously, Cleveland Browns, ton of needs. They have addressed, I guess, bringing in some starters along the offensive line. We kind of touched on offensive line, getting obviously, some answers at wide receiver. Definitely need for Cleveland here. Again, Zion Johnson, they gave him the bad. Elton Jenkins came into town. Titus Howard. So they have spent a little bit of money there, bringing in some offensive linemen after that being such an issue. But what do you think the Browns do at 6?
Yeah, I wonder if they go a different direction here than offensive line. I think that when we last spoke, we were talking about O-line. Something that's kind of started to pick up a little bit of steam here would be Carnell Tate potentially to the Browns. I mean, they badly need wide receiver help. Like they're looking at, I mean, it's rough. It's like what said Tillman was there for a minute. Like Jerry Jeudy, Isaiah Bond. Like obviously they need
Probably
other
your
help.
3 starters right now. Yeah.
That's it, right? Like I'm not missing anyone, am I? I mean, Malachi
Jamari
Corley,
Thrash, Malachi Corley. Yeah, it's not great.
I mean, and then they have whatever rotation of quarterback that they're going to throw out there. Like, you got to at least give them a chance with some weapons. So, like, I think that they could go with like a playmaker wide receiver here, and they do have another 1st-round pick where they could maybe get more offensive line out, maybe get another position. Whereas, I mean, we've seen receivers bump up into the mid-20s, or mid-teens frequently. Like if all the receivers that they want are gone, they might just be better off going with Carnell Tate. So I'm going to go with Carnell Tate here for the Browns. I think that that's very much in play at this point. And I don't think there's 6th overall pick odds right now. Otherwise, would love to see what those are, because maybe I'll be able to pull up Cal Sheet and we can circle back if you want to go on to Scott here.
Yeah, I think it's very much in play. I think Tate's in play at 5 for the Giants as well. Just a matter of, again, with a team like the Browns who have a 2nd first-round pick, it's a matter of kind of where do they see a separation, because they'll have an option probably to pick one of the other projected, I guess, 1st-round wide receivers with their 24th pick. So just a matter of, do they see Tate as a separator there? All right, Scott, your squad, the Washington Commanders on the clock. Commanders, again, had a ton of capital to be able to spend in free agency. Not a ton of draft capital on the board, but they were very, very active. He's bringing in Nick Cross, you can see here. I mean, they've been just Kevion Chase on from the Patriots. Charles Omenihu gave Odafe Owe a lot of money to try to kind of address this edge issue that they had. Chika Kwanku coming in at tight end. Just a bunch of moves that they made here too. Leo Chanel, who I'm really excited to see if they give him the green dot and allow him to be kind of a prototypical off-ball linebacker after being really efficient and minimal snaps in Kansas City, but I'm excited for that one. But Commanders, what do you got?
Yeah, I really like Carnell Tate as a fit here. It's probably the worst kept secret in the world that Brandon Ayuk wants to be in Washington to play with Jaden Daniels there at quarterback. And I think if Carnell Tate is on the board, he will be in heavy consideration. There's been reports that maybe this will be Terry McLaurin's last year. And then when you start looking at cap, it would make a lot of sense for them to be able to save some money there in 2027 and replace a guy like Terry McLaurin with a young wide receiver like Carnell Tate. But look, with Tate off the board, I think even with the signings that they had at edge, I think you look at a guy like David Bailey here at 7 as an edge, and he goes into that pass rush rotation. When you look at Kelvin Chason, he's a guy that has been a little bit of a journeyman. He kind of picked up and had a good season last year, but he still does not grade out well as far as the run and a full-time player. So I think that's a rotation that you could kind of work around and maybe move Odafe Owe inside on certain passing downs and work out a good rotation with David Bailey and the rest of the ends they have there in Washington.
Yeah, you need at least 3 at edge, and Chaison's really just kind of a 1-year deal as well. So if you want to get a long-term answer, I don't think it precludes them from taking an edge here at all. Connor, any luck on the 6 pick odds, or otherwise Saints are yours?
Yeah, no six pick odds. And the Saints in this position are in a really peculiar spot because right now, the consensus for them right now is taking Carnell Tate. Both Scott and I think, made a pretty compelling case that he might go at 6 or 7 if they're interested in him, because both it fits team need, fits like, a variety of factors there. So then the Saints are in that spot. Another guy who's popular mocked to these Saints is Jeremiyah Love. Obviously long gone at this point, and probably will be long gone by the time we get here. So that
does the Travis Etienne news preclude them from getting into Love, even if he is available?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely it does.
It's going to take me a little bit to adjust to that name, I'll be honest.
I'm not calling him Travis Etienne. That is just ridiculous. That is absurd. Scott, what do you think about that? I mean, this is like you're a local, so that's
I think when you start to look at it, some of the defensive things that they have, you have Cam Jordyn, who's been there, for a long time, moving on. And I think this is just a situation where you go best player available. And I think you look at a guy like Ruben Bain, who can move right into that Cam Jordyn role, and a guy who production-wise and film-wise has everything that you ask for, but might slide a little bit here just due to some arm length issues. And I think he's a guy that could go ahead and move into that defense that actually played pretty well over the last half of last year. And I just think it's the Saints, while they need help, and Carnell Tate would definitely fit the bill if he were on the board. But again, with him being off, I think the Saints roster is in a position where you just go best player available, and that's Ruben Bain.
I appreciate the celeb pick there. I was mostly referring to the pronunciation of Etienne, but
that would be Etienne.
Great analysis, though, Scott.
Yeah, I love the analysis, and so Ruben Bain has to be the selection there. So I love that.
We're going to go Ruben Bain. So they had Ruben Bain. Low-key, all of a sudden, we're going to have a pretty solid pass rush in New Orleans, right? They haven't had really an identity much at all in the last couple of years. You add Ruben Bain to Chase Young, who continues to be underrated, right? I know that he did not live up to number 2 pick overall type of talent, but he's had a really good couple of years in New Orleans. Carl Granderson is a dog. They added Caden Ellis, who's one of the best off-ball blitzing linebackers too. So that's all of a sudden a pretty decent pass rush in New Orleans if they were to add Ruben Bain. Real quick, Connor, do you have any thoughts on the teardrop? Because Scott's made a couple references of hey, the Commanders would like Tate if he were there. The Saints would like Tate if he were there. Where do we get into the gap between where Tate is versus where Tyson or Lemon are in terms of that secondary wide receiver?
Well, I'm still trying to figure that out, because from what I see, it shouldn't be a teardrop from where the media is portraying things and where it seems like NFL teams think that Tate is the clear number 1. I don't know if I agree with that yet. And that could very well lead to I don't know, 6, 7, 8 all being wide receivers. Would that be that crazy? Maybe not. If they all one of those guys, or maybe it leads to Tate not even being consideration. I would be kind of surprised if a receiver is not in consideration in that range. So I don't know. I think I'm still kind of feeling that out and sussing out what if there is a teardrop, or if it's a fake teardrop, or like Loveland versus Warren last year. Everyone initially for a long time thought Warren was clear one. Then the gap started closing as we got close to the draft, and it was okay, maybe Loveland could pop Warren, and that's what happened. He went 10th to Chicago. Warren went, was it 14 or 12 to the Colts? I think 14.
Yeah.
So yeah, that could be very similar. At this point, I think it's Tate, but yeah, I would not be surprised if any of these other receivers kind of creeps up a little bit here.
I don't think the gap between Tate and Tyson is that big. I think what you're really looking at is, there's been some rumors about some medical stuff coming back with Tyson. When it comes to Lemon, I think he's just a different type of wide receiver as far as being more of a slot guy that has that explosive after the catch. So you have to have a specific position for Lemon to go ahead and fit within that scheme. And I just think the gap between Tyson and Tate has to do with medicals more than play. Look at the Ohio State and what they have been producing as far as wide receivers for the last 5 to 10 years. And I think there's a bit of safety and lack of what you would maybe call bust potential there with Tate coming from that program.
Hard to argue with that. All right, Scott, back to you at 9, Kansas City first to 2. Kenneth Walker got the bag. They also added a couple of moves defensively, which I think is nice. Kader Kua missed most of the year last year for Miami, but is a pretty solid nickel. They added Lohe Gilman as well at safety to replace Brian Cook, who walked to Cincinnati in free agency. Chris Tonga as well as an interior defensive lineman, and then Justin Fields to back up Mahomes and get some early season starts here. But Chiefs do have a decent amount of needs. What do you think they do here at 9?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of positions you can go with. They just made some different moves along the offensive line, so I think Monroe Freeland could be in consideration here. But look, we saw what happened with their secondary, and their secondary is a huge need. So I'm gonna go ahead and ride the LSU boy up top and go Mansour Delane to go ahead and fill some of those cornerback needs that they just had with the majority of their secondary leaving through free agency.
Yeah, I don't think Mansour Delane slips out of the top 10. So you can make a case that, I think the Saints are in play there for him too. I think he could be, he's going earlier than I think. There's just been enough national drumbeat there. I believe that was a DJ thing early that just, is one of those like guys that front offices seem to love more than the public so far. And I think, Delane had a fantastic year at LSU. I think that makes a ton of sense. Connor, back to you for the Bengals. Bengals have been, pretty busy as well, making some moves. Again, a lot of holes to fill there on the defensive side for Cincinnati, and they've been trying to. Boye Mafe got some money there. Brian Cook at safety. Also Jonathan Allen from Minnesota. Obviously, they've stayed pat offensively, and you imagine that their first pick here would probably be on the defensive side as well. What do you think that the Bengals do at 10?
Yeah, I think that they could go. Right now the popular pick is Caleb Downs. I think that's probably still seems like the most likely. They just need to go somewhere on defense. I was considering Delane if he was still there. Even though that's not necessarily the biggest need for them, Caleb Downs could make sense. Like they need to just draft defense. Reuben Bain, if he falls, I think is very possible. Could be a selection there. So personally, right now, I guess one of those three, since 2 of the 3 are off the board, I'll go with Downs. But I think that makes sense.
I think it does. Signed Brian Cook, who you play, strong or free, but obviously Downs can do a little bit of whatever. They have some questions in nickel. Downs could step in there. He's just kind of a Swiss Army knife, and just another player that probably has no business falling outside of the top 10. So love that one. Easy click there. Scott, back to you. 11 for Miami. Very busy off season, leaving us scratching our heads often in terms of like, all right, you show a little bit of signs of being interested in being competitive this year, giving Malik Willis a bunch of money, but then you kind of let most of your talent walk. Pretty bad roster overall. Lots of holes. What does Miami do at 11?
Just a question for you guys. Has Miami passed the Jets for having the worst roster possibly in the NFL? I think
they're worse now. Yeah.
Yeah. They're
it's
worse.
rough. Over the last couple of days, they've had some rumors about A-Chain, but they've kind of squashed that and said that he's not, but at this point, like, what do you even do? A-Chain is just going to waste away. You're talking about weapons, Greg Dulcich at tight end, Malik Washington, Jalen Tolbert, and Tutu Atwell. That's their pass catchers right now on Miami. So we're going to go wide receiver out and go Jordyn Tyson out of Arizona State. I don't know what you do with this roster. There's so many holes, and you're not going to fill it at wide receiver any other way. You have to get Malik Willis some type of weapon to actually throw to. So let's go with the young guy.
You don't consider Jalen Tolbert a weapon?
No.
Yeah, it's rough. I guess you would say they have a decent front 7-ish. The secondary is just atrocious considering how bad it was last year, and it's worse. And then the offense is pretty bad. Their offensive line's okay. But yeah, I think it's a pretty terrible roster overall. Connor, back to you. 12 for Dallas. They have 2. They pick 12. They also pick at pick 20. Been pretty adamant. And again, Jerry does tend to show his hand a little bit and has been pretty adamant that like defense will continue to be a focus. They've made some moves. Rashawn Gary at edge, Jalen Thompson coming over from Arizona to fill one of the safety spots. They added Kobe Durant to play one of the corners. Still have a ton of needs on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jermod McCoy from Tennessee, corner. I think that ends up making the most sense here. Just like another playmaker on their defense. After the whole, Micah stuff, like they just can't afford to get into 40-point shootouts every week. Like they need to just make a stop ever. Like just make a stop, force a turnover, do anything. And so where it is on the defense that they want to target. I think that can be left up to expectation or left up to, perception here. I think there's McCoy is an interesting one here, but from the rest of the group, like, I don't know. I mean, another guy, like they could go with a defensive lineman here. It seems like there's kind of like another tier of defensive linemen, like in the late teens, early 20s of like Falk, Akeem Messidor, Peter Woods, Caleb Banks are all like kind of, there as well in the like mid 20s or like early 20s. So I think that's I think they double tap defense here. And if they don't, I would be pretty surprised.
I think they double tap defense here too. Want to push back. We did get a quote last week from Jera. I think Gerard McCoy makes a ton of sense if it's a need. He said specifically, we're not taking an injured player. Now, Gerard McCoy didn't play last year, probably no longer injured, but he did say that that's something that they're not interested in. So that almost specifically feels like a line through McCoy and almost McCoy only.
Well, that's a great pivot then. Let's go somewhere else. Let's go.
I think team need, though. You landed the plane there perfectly. He's a perimeter corner is like such a glaring need.
And they do have pick 20. So there's going to be some defensive back talent there as well.
Yeah. So I guess would that bump up one of the other defensive linemen? Because this is kind of like a weird range right here. There's a couple offensive linemen. There's, I don't know, Kenyon Sadiq. I can't imagine they're going to take him. Dylan Thieneman, another safety, 2 safeties in the top 15. Is that outrageous? Like that seems like
it's not. So they signed Jalen Thompson. They have Malik Hooker, who's been in the league for a decade and is not really starting caliber anymore. And Thieneman's like bonkers athlete. I think Thieneman's in play for the Bengals at 10 if Downs is off the board.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel like he's definitely he's moving up. So it does fit a need.
Where would you go since this is like an all defense pick and you're the defense ball knower? Who would you pick, Noonan?
I would take Thieneman.
All right, well, let's roll Thieneman then.
Yeah. I mean, I would take McCoy, but he said it, so he's telling on himself. And again, Jared's one of those guys that just doesn't like. They don't really hide some stuff. I feel like them and the Steelers, we tend to have like a feel without any actual info because like we tend to get some tells there. So I like the Thieneman pick. I think there are plenty of teams between here and 20 that would like to scoop him up. So I think that's a really good pick for them.
Love it.
All right, Scott, back to you for the Rams at 13. Rams have been busy. Definitely feel like they're in this win now, all in kind of mode, which would make a ton of sense. It's a fantastic roster, kind of poaching some of the Chiefs corners and Jalen Watson, who's been awesome anytime he's healthy, and Trent McDuffie. Those are really good fits. Still re-signing Cam Curl. Offensive line is pretty solid. What do you think the Rams do here at 13?
Yeah, I actually like offensive line as a fit. I've seen Mekhi Lemon mock to them a bunch, but I think Monroe Freeling kind of fits some of what they can go for there on offensive line. Just kind of looking at what they have, I just think he's a better prospect long term. And if we're going to go ahead and run Matt Stafford back for another year, I think he needs to stay upright and not take so many hits, especially with the long term back issues that he has. So I kind of like Monroe Freeling here at 13 for them.
Monroe Freeling 13 to the Rams. Connor, back to you. 14 for the Baltimore Ravens. Again, just new Ravens. Just I think hard to get our brain around. It's been the Harbaugh-led era for a very long time. Still some, DeCosta and decision makers are still intact there. See some of the things that they've done. They brought back John Simpson, who's been there previously. Obviously, we know the shuffling and defensive end. Trey Hendrickson is the new addition there after all the Max Crosby stuff. What do you think the Ravens do at 14?
Yeah, they're an interesting spot because Mekhi Lemon doesn't really fit what they need wide receiver wise at this point. Like if you have Zay Flowers, like I don't know, he obviously plays outside, but he can move around a little bit. And so I think like a guy like Jordyn Tyson is mocked to them a lot. He's already picked. So Tyson's gone. Tate would make sense. He's gone. Obviously long gone there. And then from an offensive lineman perspective, it seems like they kind of need interior guys. Correct me if I'm wrong here, and not really as many tackles. So that also puts them in an interesting spot here because I think Spencer Fano, who's like average draft position of like, I mean, he's gone anywhere from 3 to 18 or something like that. Probably doesn't fit what they need either. So another like the most popular guy who's being mocked to them right now is, I mean, my God, I don't know how to pronounce this. Olavia Vega Ione.
Yeah, sure.
Sky, you got a pronunciation there? I mean,
Nope.
that's we try. That's all I got to say on this show. We're going to try.
I think he goes by Vega, which is really
Yeah,
nice
they call
of
him Vega for short for the first
Vega
name.
Ione. Yeah,
Vega Ione. He's the most popular mocked here. There are other guys that are technically better values, I think. But I think that he's probably the decision point in this mock draft for me.
what about a Kenyon Sadiq? That'd be hot.
I mean, they just got rid of Likely. Mark
Yeah,
Andrews
fill that role. Andrews,
Yeah.
maybe might. What if he's dusty at this point? He might be a little dusty.
I think Mark is definitely dusty. But
All right, Spencer.
no. Vega.
No, Vega. I'm sorry, Vega Ione, interior. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I like it. Don't hate that. They made a couple of signings at interior, but I think they're fillers. Nothing long term. So like that one. Scott, back to you. Tampa Bay at 15. Tampa Bay has got some needs. One of them is not wide receiver, even though they let Mike Evans go. They've tried to throw some resources at defensive end the last couple of years, haven't had a ton of success. Ashawn Robinson, they brought in Alquin Mohammed from Detroit. Also, Alex Anzalone from Detroit to fill the linebacker spots, and letting Devontae, whatever his name is, linebacker walk. They let in Alex Anzalone, who just should not be starting at linebacker anymore, but he is. What does Tampa do at 15?
Yeah, I think they still
Devontae
need some pass rush, and I like Keldrick Falk from Auburn. I think he makes a lot of sense here. He's kind of the chalk consensus pick. I think in a lot of mock drafts, somewhere around here for Tampa. It's got tight end listed as a need, but they went ahead and re-signed Cade Otton. I think they like Cade Otton a lot, just specifically what he brings to that team. So I think edge is a little bit more important for a need for them, and so I think Kendrick Falk makes a lot of sense.
I think he's a home run pick for them too. And Jason Litch has been one of those character guys, and I think that's one of the things that Falk I think grades out really well. Is just kind of one of those leaders, a guy that I think when you sit across from people think is going to interview very, very well. I could see Tampa Bay falling in love there. It's definitely a need at edge. Connor, back to you. For the Jets, your second Jets pick. They picked at 2 with Arvell Reese. Still at 16 with a bunch of needs on the board here. What do you think the Jets do?
If I'm the Jets, I'm going to keep adding just good players until they have enough of a core to sustain maybe a new quarterback player. Maybe that's Fano, maybe it's McCoy, maybe it's Mekhi Lemon, alongside Gary Wilson would be fun. But because I'm drafting for the Jets, I'm going to do a very Jets thing. I'm going to pick Ty Simpson as the quarterback heir to Geno Smith coming back from the dead to be the Jets quarterback. Just throw a little curveball here. I don't know how far you're gonna have to scroll, but
okay.
Another curveball. Jeremiah put Omar Cooper there at 16, a guy who was like, I mean, late 20s, fringe first round kind of guy in most mocks. Put him at 16. Getting a lot of steam, it seems like. I wouldn't be surprised to see him be like kind of a fringe top 20 pick. Also very much in play. I just think that, Ty Simpson here could be fun, and it's certainly a need. And it's a very Jets thing to do, is to take a quarterback that isn't going to play, doesn't have the supporting cast, and is probably not ready to play either. So it's perfect alignment in my mind.
Perfect Jets pick. Love it. Love it. I don't hate Ty Simpson. I don't know if he's.
No, me neither.
Yeah. All I do know is that quarterback analysis is impossible, and everyone's terrible at it, even the people that are good at it. So, I don't know. Quarterback, is he good? I don't know. That's all I got. All right, Scott, back to you. 17 Detroit Lions. Been pretty quiet in terms of like starters. I think one of the best rosters in football. Obviously, a little bit of a down year, but Roger McQuarrie, Christian Eisen in the secondary have been signed. Added Cade Mays to fill in at center. Drew Scruggs came over in that trade from Houston. Pacheco coming into that David Montgomery role, but could still see them addressing the offensive line. Still think they have some defensive line needs, maybe a need at off-ball linebacker as well. I'm not sure that's something that they addressed in the first round, though. Again, Jack Campbell was a first-round pick, and so in terms of positional value, they are not afraid to go kind of off the board.
Yeah, I think Spencer Fano falling this far would make a lot of sense to them. I think he could play multiple positions across the offensive line and go ahead and help them out and figure out a way to get that offensive line settled there in the interior and on the left side as well. So I think he makes a lot of sense if he's on the board here for Detroit.
In Detroit, there's been some talk about Penei Sewell moving to left tackle, so I don't think that they're stuck on having to draft someone to fill the left tackle need. I think you could see Penei Sewell move to left, and you can grab someone like Fano who's played some right tackle. I wouldn't skip a beat there. So I can't imagine that Penei Sewell transferring from the right side to the left side is really that much of a problem for him. Even though he's obviously the best right tackle in football, I think he'd imagine he'd be probably one of the best left tackles in football as well. So Spencer Fanu to the Lions. Connor, back to you. Minnesota at 18. Some quarterback battle. I don't even know if it's going to be a battle. I feel like it's going to be Kyler at this point. They added James Pierre at corner as well. I still have some secondary needs. But what do you think Minnesota does at 18?
That's the question. Does Kyler beat out JJ before the season? I kind of think that they give JJ another run first.
Think so?
Maybe. Well,
yeah.
I mean, it just depends how bad it is in camp, right? Like, I mean, it really does. If it's a disaster, like, pull the plug, right?
Yeah.
I mean, didn't the Colts just did this with Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, basically, right? I mean, like,
it's true. It's a good point. Yeah. I mean, it is theoretically easier to give JJ the shot and be able to pull him versus giving it to Kyler and then having to go back to JJ.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's a mess.
Tough. That's tough.
Yeah. Anyway, it's not really all that relevant here. I think that Kenyon Sadiq would be fun here. They did just re-sign TJ Hawkinson. I know, but I think it was like a really shitty deal. Jordan Addison continues his legal troubles. So basically it's like you got a dead tight end. You got like a second wide receiver who's battling legal troubles. Then you have Kenyon Sadiq, who's like the most athletic tight end of all time and they could easily play 12 or, like have him play run the slot or play outside. So I think Sadiq would be fun there.
Yeah. Jalen Naylor ran a ton of routes for them last year, and he's now with the Raiders. So in terms of, secondary pass catchers, there's definitely questions there. So Sadiq, 18 to Minnesota. Makes sense. Carolina, 19. Carolina, can they make it 3 years in a row clicking wide receiver in the first round? I think it's probably possible. I think they had a nice little free agency, threw some money at Jalen Phillips for edge rusher. Definitely a huge need that they had there. Kind of like that move for them. Some questions in terms of what they're going to do at left tackle. Ike Ekwonu getting hurt late in the season. They added Rashad Walker from Green Bay, threw a bunch of money in Devin Lloyd, the playoff ball linebacker. So some decent moves there. Solidifying some offensive line stuff there too. Scott, what do you think the Panthers do in 19?
Look, I like Sadiq if he makes it there. That's who I was going to roll with, but you gotta go ahead and make some adjustments whenever that happens. And I think the Panthers are kind of set at wide receiver to an extent. When you start looking at it, I think they really like what they have in Jalen Coker and the way he started to develop. You've seen him have some big games. Ted McMillan, had a hell of a season last year. I think there's a hole there at tight end that they could have filled. But look, we're going to go ahead and just kind of like go with the board. I think, Jermod McCoy, talent-wise, is a player that, in this situation, maybe just take the best player available, slide him into a cornerback position and, see where those medicals kind of worked out. And I think you definitely solidify that secondary, opposite of J.C. Horn. And I think that's a play that will work out there if Sadiq's not there.
All right, Jerome McCoy. They got a really good season out of Mike Jackson last year, and pretty solid team-friendly deal. But I think McCoy should be gone by now. But it can't hurt adding solid secondary pieces there too. Can they find a way? I think their real question in the secondary is in the nickel. But maybe McCoy can do that, or maybe Mike Jackson can do that. He's done that in the past too. So, Connor, back to you for your second Cowboys pick as well. We went, I think, Dylan Thielemann the first time. Yep. And they still have defensive needs here at 20.
Yeah, we went Dylan Thielemann. So I think that makes it easier for us to go with defensive line here. Probably we'll go with Akeem Messidor. That's a pretty popular selection here at 20. I mean, they could pick a guy like Avion Terrell, the corner, as well, if they really wanted to like double down on secondary. I don't think that's like the worst idea in the world. So that would be an interesting spot too. But because, I mean, again, I think that they'll do the optimal thing, probably pick one secondary, one defensive lineman, something like that. They double down on both. Who knows? That wouldn't be that surprising, I guess.
Yep. The Mesidor thing just comes down, I think, to whatever team's philosophy is on drafting, 25-year-olds versus, 20, 21-year-olds, right? So I think Mesidor's tape belongs definitely in this top 20. It just is a matter of who gives a rip. If he's, coming out of his first contract and going into his second contract, he's almost 30. Right.
Messidor may as well be like 15 compared to Jerry Jones. So, anything, 20 age is not a problem, I think, for Jera.
It's true. Just for note, the one front office that has mattered the least amount in the last handful of years, the Chicago Bears. Ryan Pohl's not afraid to select the olds, so could be interesting if Messidor's still there for the Bears in a couple of picks. All right, back to you, Scott. 21, Pittsburgh, another new organization, not new front office, but new coach, right? With Mike Tomlin being gone, feels like some changes. Had him there for literally an eternity. They added Michael Pittman via trade. I felt like robbery. Did not give up very much to get, I think, a real big-bodied wide receiver that could do a lot of things still, not dynamic and electric, but I think a really good receiver. Sebastian Joseph Day, Jamal Dean, Jaquan Brisker, Darnell Savage along the defensive side. So pretty solid offseason, I think, for the Steelers. What do you think they do at 21?
Look, I think when it comes down to draft day, I think you Steelers are going to be a team that is looking to move in this draft. Just the things that they need do not fit right here. You look at maybe their interior offensive line, quarterback. It's just the draft board. I don't think on draft day is going to end up aligning with a lot of what they need. I think Pittman, they got a steal. You got DK Metcalf, and so I think we're going to go with a completely different type of wide receiver to fill weapons for whoever the quarterback may end up being. And I think we'll go with Mekhi Lemon here at 21, just a playmaker that they can run out of the slot and kind of do some things with the ball in his hand after catch and stuff. So I think they've done a decent job in free agency and filling some needs and adding some pieces, but the things that they really need to clarify and kind of figure out their quarterback and some of their weapons, I think Mekhi Lemon will make a decent bit of sense for some of the needs they have if they're stuck here. But like I said, I think this is a team that will be in prime position to go ahead and make some moves on draft day.
Feels like I'll run the card up to the podium selection if Mekhi Lemon happens to be there for them at 21. Feels like if you have some concerns about the secondary receivers that they've taken the last couple of years, like, man, Lemon feels like he answers that slot with the two big guys on the outside. I feel like that would be a really nice addition to whoever's the quarterback for them next year. So I like that pick a lot. Feels like a pretty easy click with the way the board has fallen. 22 to you, Connor, for the Chargers. I think a pretty nice little free agent period, solidifying some interior offensive line issues. Again, obviously they get Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt back next year. Things get a little bit easier. Bringing in Tyler Badass at center, Cole Strange at right guard. I think are really nice moves. What do you think they do at 22?
Yeah, I'm just reading the comments now from my Jets pick here. You don't pick a quarterback who played 15 games of college at a premium pick. Agreed, let alone 15th overall in the entire draft. Yeah, guys, I mean, it's the Jets. So, I agree with you. But
you did preface it with, I wouldn't do it. I'm doing it because the Jets would do it. So this is not what we think teams should do. This is, This
is what I think that they could do. And I think that is well within the range of outcomes. They could pick another quarterback. I mean, who knows? 22, I'm going to go with Omar Cooper. I mean, they need some talent, I think, outside of Vlad McConkey. They did have Keenan Allen soak up a ton of targets come in. QJ was kind of revitalized. They bring in Mike McDaniel as well. Omar Cooper ran a really good 40. He was 4.42. But he's more like a big bodied outside guy. I think that he would be a great fit for them, just structurally within their offense. So I think Omar Cooper would be interesting here. Denzel Boston could make a case as well. But I think Cooper probably gets the nod for me at this point.
Yeah, I like it. If they were to select defense they get here and Emmanuel McNeil Ward is on the board, I would think that they should do that too. But I understand the Cooper play as well. I like him quite a bit. And as you mentioned, definitely some steam coming from the DJs of the world. And I think he's going to have a nice little pre-draft situation here. But man, Emmanuel McNeil Warren would be a really nice fit. And they have some holes at safety. Back to you, Scott. 23, Philly. Look, re-signed Dallas Goedert. We weren't, I don't think, expecting. Still feels like the AJ Brown trade is, I don't know, more likely to happen than not, but who knows what's going on there. What do you think Philly does here at 23?
Look, I think they've been shuffling around offensive line. They're starting to get, a little bit older. And, one of the names I keep hearing, to look out for there is Caden Proctor, big tackle from Alabama. I think he makes a lot of sense. You look at the way they draft, the SEC connections that, Howie Roseman normally goes after, and then building along the trenches and, filling in some of the offensive line injuries that they've had over the last couple of years. I think he makes a lot of sense here to Philadelphia, who is, I feel like they're kind of transitioning and teetering between whether or not they want to be a Super Bowl contender or if they're just going to go ahead and kind of be like that playoff team. But I think he makes a lot of sense for some of the needs that they have.
All right. Ken Proctor probably becomes a swing for them. I don't know that there's a hole, but like this could be Lane Johnson's last year. Who knows what's happening there long term. It does feel like a Howie move to kind of stay one step ahead, especially in the trenches. So that would not surprise me whatsoever. Connor, back to you for another Browns pick at 24. We addressed wide receiver the first time with Carnell Tate. What do you think the Browns do here at 24?
I thought about doubling down, but not going to do that. I think Caleb Lomu, like a left tackle, I think from Utah.
Yep.
He's pretty commonly, most mock drafts going, I don't know, kind of like top 25-ish, top 27 range, somewhere in there. So I think 24 for him could make a lot of sense. Browns need some left tackle help there, kind of reshuffling their offensive line a little bit. So he's a 2-year starter left tackle. So I think that's a pretty good fit.
Caleb Lomu to the Browns at 24, Chicago at 25. Scott, let's see what the Bears have been up to. Obviously, making some moves. Surprise retirement along the offensive line. Replaced Garrett Bradbury, stepped in there. Khalif Raymond as your slot receiver. Devin Bush, Kobe Bryant, Cam Lewis on the defensive side of the ball for starters. Still have some needs. I think you could fill in the secondary. Lots of different ways for the Bears to go. What do you think they do at 25?
Yeah, they lost one of their cornerbacks, but look, I'm still doing a lot of homework here on these defensive tackles and trying to figure out scheme fits. And I'm going to go with Peter Woods from Clemson along that defensive line. And I think Ben Johnson's kind of put his fingerprints on this offense the last year and a half as far as filling in pieces and what he wants to do there. And so I think they're going to turn a little bit of attention over to the defensive side of the ball.
I think an interior defensive lineman, whether they deem that's Woods or Banks or, Ken McDonald, like one of those guys, I think makes a ton of sense along the interior defensive line for the Bears. So like that call out quite a bit. Connor, back to you, 26. Buffalo Bills. We know the DJ Moore trade. They also brought in Bradley Chubb, CJ Gardner-Johnson to fill in the secondary as well. D. Alford fills in for Teron Johnson, who jumped to the Raiders. Geno Stone also in town. They had some questions at safety. So in terms of what they're looking to do there, so it feels a little redundant in the back half. But what do you think the Bills do at 26?
Yeah, you know what? I know that they got DJ Moore. I know that they have Khalil Shakir, but they need to take Keon Coleman, remove him from the roster, and draft an X receiver like Denzel Boston. We put DJ Moore at Y or Z. Then we put Khalil Shakir in the slot. You have Dalton Kincaid healthy. You got James Cook running. Josh Allen with those guys, and then a rookie Denzel Boston, I think would be just an awesome, awesome unit. And go from literally a unit that I think kind of let Josh Allen down in a lot of ways to one that, I mean, could vault into the top 5, 10 in the league, with all of those guys healthy. So I think that would be just a massive shift and then a great time for them to double down on wideout here when, like you mentioned, like they filled a lot of gaps that I think were gaps.
Yeah.
And now at this point, I think they're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I mean, they could use some depth at edge. They could use it. Well, I don't know what they're doing in linebacker, but like those are, I mean, edge is a premier position, but I think you can get some of those things a little bit later. I think there's probably a pretty solid gap at wide receiver that falls off. So I'm with you. Like build around your franchise. If one of these premier wide receivers is still there, especially a big body guy like Denzel Boston, I think that makes a ton of sense for Buffalo at 26. Scott, back to you. 27, San Francisco. Again, another questions at wide receiver. They went out and addressed that. Mike Evans, Christian Kirk. If Ricky Bullets is still struggling a little bit, they have some answers there. Some moves along the defensive side too, in terms of some depth pieces, interior defensive line, some nice additions there. What do you think the Niners do at 27?
I think it's a little bit rough, and one of the things that's going to pop up is what ends up happening with Trent Williams. There's been a lot of information, based upon, he wants more money. Are they going to get rid of him? He's getting up there in age. He's got a lot of miles and wear and tear on the body. Missed some games last year, and I don't know if there's a tackle that makes a lot of sense right here at this point in time. I think you could maybe see them, try to move around. I'm just going to go ahead and I think one of the positions that they could use is I think we go after the safety here, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. I think they could use a little bit of secondary help. I think he's an upgrade over some of what they have right now, and Malik Mustafa and Jair Brown. I think he would make a lot of sense, and it's just one of those things where the way the board fell, if the right tackle was there, I think they would go tackle. But I don't think any of the tackles here make sense.
Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is awesome, and a hybrid player that could do a lot. Definitely a lot of like Nick Amawori vibes there too. So yeah, I think he's a really nice fit to play him with Malik Mustafa and let them just kind of terrorize teams that can get to the second level against them. I think that'd be a really nice fit. Houston, Connor, for you, 28, obviously a solid roster, but some holes, some questions. They think they've done a good job at trying to throw some pieces along the offensive line, since that's been an issue. Wyatt Teller there, Brendan Smith comes in. Feels like they kind of have starters there, added some depth too, and Evan Brown. Defensively, they signed Reed Blankenship to play free safety for them. They've also added some depth along the defensive line as well, especially on the interior. But I still think that's a need. What do you think the Texans do?
Yeah, I think that they need to go all line and draft a line like 5 times just in a row and just figure out how to make that offense work consistently, especially the running game. I think the running game can get going. They got David Montgomery, still have Woody Marks. Not an ideal 1-2 duo, but I don't think it's bad. Now, the question is, how do they address O-line? I think that they need mostly interior offensive line. I can't say at this point in the draft that I'm super familiar with the delineation between Max Iheanacho and Chase Besantis to like who can play inside, or like kind of the dynamics there.
Yeah, Besantis is going to be the interior guy, the guard.
There you go. I think that's probably the move then.
All right. I'm going to scroll. Where am I scrolling to?
Just all the areas. Chase Besantis. Yep. Texas A&M guard. Perfect.
All right. Just in the interior offensive line. Back to you, Scott. 29 for Kansas City. Our first Kansas City pick was Mansour Lane, cornerback from LSU. What do you think they do with their second first-round pick?
Yeah, one of the considerations I had earlier was for edge rusher, and I think that's where they go now. And I think Cassius Howell makes a lot of sense this late in the draft. A player that can go ahead and get after it. And you start looking at the contracts of what some of these defensive ends are making. I think they had a good signing, but kind of beaten to the point of getting Karlaftis, I think, an extension, and what they did with him, I think, last year. So I think Cassius Howell is a player that can make a lot of sense for them here this late in the draft.
Cassius Howell, nice tape, a little smaller, but again, performing defensive player of the year in that conference, I think, is not nothing. Sliding a little bit compared to where I think we thought he'd go earlier in the process, but again, measurables and those things did not go great for him at the combine. Arm length concerns, size concerns, but definitely get after the quarterback. Don't hate that at all at 29. That's for sure. 30 to you, Connor. Dolphins, their second pick. We went Jordyn Tyson the first time around. This is their pick from Denver with the Jalen Waddle trade.
Yeah, I mean the Dolphins, they need Jesus. There's people in the chat still talking about like
He's not on the
maybe
board.
he is off the board, unfortunately. Need some more wide receiver help. I thought it was an interesting note that KC Conception got a preventative knee cleanup, which was strange. I don't know how that even makes sense. Not a doctor, but see, when they're like, oh, no concern here. Obviously, a little bit of a concern. I think for the Dolphins, a popular pick right now is CJ Allen. Looks like he's really high on PFF Sport as well. He was like, I think the top remaining player. And
they have linebackers though. It's like the only things they do have is they kind of have. I mean, Jordan Brooks and Terrell Dotson. Like it's in terms of like team need. Like they got that kind of like they don't have anything else.
Yeah, I'm open to another celeb pick if you want to go like Terrell or McDonald or I don't know anyone else here. If you got any sleepers, we only have 3 picks left. So
yeah, they need help. I mean, I
like literally. Who's their best player right now?
I mean,
I don't know.
Zach Sealer, the interior defensive line. Like, it's not pretty. I mean, they have a solid offensive line, right? They had one of their offensive linemen was a Pro Bowler. I mean, Pro Bowler doesn't matter much anymore, but right, it wasn't Austin Jackson or someone had a good year. Yeah, no, Aaron Brewer, I believe, was one of the I think nominees for the Trench Player Award or whatever it is. So
the chat is loving your guys' picks. Actually, it's hating it. Scott, I think someone in here, we got Slam and Sammy Joe and Mickey Moonrock over here just rooting on TJ Parker. And you pick someone else and they're quite upset. So chat's getting into the draft here. Appreciate you guys hanging out here and love the feedback. It's great.
Yeah, I think this is TJ Parker, Zion Young, and I want to throw out another name that I think we need to get on people's radar. Malachi Lawrence is a dog. That's it. Just going to put it out there. We're going to start to hear some Malachi Lawrence, bottom first round. Maybe it's Patriots or Seahawks. There's some he's on a really select list of guys in the last 10 years in terms of win rates, RAS score. Malachi Lawrence is a guy. So in terms of some of these edge rushers, Lawrence, Zion Young, and you previous mentioned TJ Parker. I think all 3 of these teams that are still on the board here in the first round could add edge depth. Let's give the Miami Avion Terrell. He's also like a willing run stuffer. Their cornerback room is atrocious. They need someone. He's a little undersized, but I think he's a really good football player, and they desperately need help at corner. We're looking at Daryl Baker Jr., who struggled to stay on the field in Tennessee last year. Lonnie Johnson, Storm Duck, Jason Marshall, who's in his second year and missed most of the year last year. It's a really, really, really bad secondary at all positions. So Terrell, I think, is a good pick there.
All right. We can roll with that. I appreciate that.
All right, Scott, back to you for the New England Patriots. Let a lot of guys walk. Also re-signed some of their own guys. Not a super busy offseason. Kevin Byard at safety is a nice fill-in. Draymond Jones at defensive end. So kind of swapping some guys they lost for those signings here too. What do you think they do? I mean, AVT was a big one for them too, and Romeo Dobbs. But New England at 31.
Yeah, I think we have some players that we're trying to slide into this first round. I think Caleb Banks is still on the board. No, Caleb Banks had drafted already.
He is.
Caleb Banks still on the board. You go Caleb Banks here at 31 for the Patriots. I think that defensive interior, and I think the talent that Banks has there along the interior would make a lot of sense for them. A couple other players, I think you could maybe slide, some offensive line help in here. Casey Concepcion's maybe another player for some wide receiver help to consider.
Love it. All right, Connor, bring us home. 32. What do you give the team that has everything?
Yeah, I mean, do we want to let's see here. I mean, it's probably. I mean, it's tough. This is tough when you're the Seahawks here. I mean, they did just lose a corner, so we could go Colton Hood. That's like a popular pick here.
I think I would go corner or edge. But yeah, I have no problem with that.
You don't want to go running back here? Jadarian Price. I do like Jadarian Price, but probably not here. They need more corner first. They They have Zach Charbonnet coming back from injury. They signed someone else. They signed someone else recently too. I think
Manuel Wilson from Green Bay.
Manuel Wilson, yeah, Manny,
Yeah.
who won us a lot of money randomly for like low lines, but I don't think he's very good. So I don't know. Yeah, probably still corner. Can dress running back later. So let's go Colton. Yeah.
Colton. All right. And again, appreciate all the comments. People have very strong opinions about the draft, even in the middle of March, which you absolutely love to see. This is the final board for us. Rundown. We'll share it on social. I'll get some more engagement, and people will tell us with conviction, there's no way Team X would take player Y if player W is available. Like, I love that stuff.
I do too, actually. I personally enjoy it. We got some commentary here. Prices in the first round. That would be goofy. Daniel Jeremiah had him in his first round in his mock. A couple other people did. I mean, wouldn't be that surprising. You never know. End of the draft, people just come off Super Bowl. They're on their high. They're like, CEH was the last pick of the first round. So
yeah,
never forget.
Hashtag never forget. All right. Anything else in closing? Anything that you, Scott, any thoughts on how the board rolled out? Anyone that you think is like, hey, just the way it kind of fell, we let this person fall out of the first round, and there's just no way you're making a mock with said player out of the first round?
I actually think that I think tackle's a position that you're going to see kind of be a fluent position up and down, especially along that second half of the first round. I think you can maybe see a position where you see like 7 tackles end up making it into the first round. So that's something that I'm kind of looking at. I think Basantis is probably a second round talent. So we're kind of getting killed in the chat right now over that one. But look, I mean, these are exercises, and I love the feedback, because when I hear it, you're not going to get this player here, they would go with that player. It makes me go back and try to do more research as far as like team scheme fit and things of that nature. So, keep it coming, tear us apart, tell us where we got it wrong. And, we'll try to get it better next time.
Early consensus is that you guys got it wrong at 28-29.
Yeah, those were not popular ones. I think we were keeping the ship on track before then, and Chad did not like that one. Some of the other popular players that we left out of the first round, I believe CJ Allen we did not take, right? 66% right now in the first round in mock drafts.
It's hard to find a home for him. We don't have full athletic testing profile. I like Jacob Rodriguez just as much. I'm sure some other teams will as well. So yeah, off-ball linebacker gets a little bit tricky, but yeah, using VR sheet is a smart resource.
Yeah, and then KC Conception is the other one we touched on. 59% in the first round right now. I think the knee cleanup might change things. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe teams were aware of it. I think he's a baller, so I think probably still goes in the first round. Just tough to find a spot for him.
Yeah, I think Zion Young's going in the first round. You guys didn't find a home for him too, and again, I'll continue to make some waves for Malachi Lawrence as an edge rusher as well. Just positional value making a ton of sense too, especially with Cassius Howell sliding down, some of those things kind of falling. So overall, again, middle of March, we got 6 weeks. It's a pretty good exercise as we kind of look on the other side of free agency, and that's what we wanted to do today. I mean, a home run pick, I think, here for the Steelers with Mekhi Lemon. I think that'd be one that Steelers fans would be quite happy about. So, all right. Appreciate it as always. Everyone head over to 4for4.com/plans, scoop up the betting subscription. It's going to get you access to all of the draft bets we do make when it comes time to do so. I can get access again to all of Scott's MMA stuff in there as well. Definitely check that out. Check out SharpStack if you have not already done so. 4for4.com/SharpStack. It's our EV top-down betting tool. We made some revamp changes to, and we're really excited about that. I hit some NBA rebound unders last night just because I wanted a little bit of a sweat, and went 3-1. So just absolutely lovely to be grinding free money on SharpStack. So check that out if you haven't already done so. Hit us up if you have any specific questions. Make sure you hit subscribe, thumbs up before you take off so you don't miss any of the videos here at 4for4. Appreciate it as always. For Scott and Connor, I'm Ryan. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks, everybody.